In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a symmetrical, balanced design. Here we have one, and this one is done with crayons, markers, and colored pencils. Here is one done with markers and crayons. And here is one done with pencil. So you can see we've got different values shaded using pencil in the symmetrical design. Okay, so to make this the easiest measurement possible, this paper is an 8.5 by 11 paper, but I want you to make an 8 by 8 square. So we're going to measure 8 inches and make a mark, slide it down, 8 inches, make a mark, draw your line, and then we're going to do it the other direction. 8 inches, mark it, 8 inches, and draw a line. Now you have an 8 by 8 square, and just cut it out. Okay, so now we have an 8 by 8 square. The next thing we want to do is have a square that is 1/4 of the size of this. So if this is 8 by 8, this square is going to be 4 by 4. So we'll take another piece of paper and we'll measure 4 inches. Okay, so now we have a square that's 4 inches by 4 inches, and then you'll cut that out. So now we're going to set the larger square to the side, and we're going to create a design on this piece of paper. But first, in the top right corner, I want you to put the letter A, and then on the back side of that, I want you to put the letter B. So if you flip it just like this, put the letter B. So you've got A, and then you've got B directly on the other side of that. Okay, now's the fun part. So you will not be able to tell what your design will turn out to be until the end, because what you're going to do is use lines and shapes and create, on this A side, you're going to create a random design. You can just start out by drawing a random line, and then you can make some shapes coming off of those. You can make lines intersect. You can do floating shapes. Okay, it can be any shapes that you want. Think of all the types of lines we have. We have zigzag lines, curvy lines, we have dotted lines, okay, so I've got a pretty good little design here. It'll be interesting to see how this turns out. Okay. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to trace this in Sharpie or black marker or something dark so that you can see it on the other side. And if you can't quite see it on the other side, you can hold it up to a window. But the goal here is to trace it with a dark marker or pen or crayon so that you will be able to see it and trace it again on the back side. And this will make more sense in just a minute. Okay, so we have A side traced, and turn it over. And again, if you cannot see through it, like if you had to use a black crayon and you can't see, then you can take this over to a window and flip it over and make sure you've got the dark lines traced on both sides. Okay, and you do not need to trace the letters. We will not need those later. In fact, we will be erasing those. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do now. When we trace this, and again, if you can see this, which I can slightly see it, then you can just lay it on the table to trace it. If you can't see it, then you can take it over to a window and do the tracing. But here's how we're going to rotate and flip this. In the top right quadrant of your 8x8 paper, you're going to have the letter A side, and then you're going to flip it this way and you'll have B. Okay, now we're going to flip it this way, so we will have an upside down A, and then we will flip it this way, and now we will have an upside down B. So if you want to look at it like this, we have A, B, upside down A, upside down B. Here's the next step. What you'll do is line up this side, so we have A corner here. So we're going to slide this under here. Make sure it's matching up. Okay, you want this to line up with the edges of the paper. You're going to want to hold it really still, and then you're going to trace it with a pencil. Okay, use a pencil so that you can fix it if you trace it wrong or mess up or whatever. And if you do take it to a window, you can use a little tiny piece of tape and tape it together, or you can use a paper clip to hold it still while you hold it up to the window. Okay, so now I have all of these things traced from this side. Okay, so it should look the same. We just traced A side. Now we're gonna flip it to match the B side. So you're gonna just flip it over like a book page to where this B lines up, and then slide it behind. Okay, make sure it's lined up on the corners. And this time you also want to make sure that this little part of the design is also matching up, because this shape, these lines that run off the edge of the little 4x4 piece of paper, these are going to connect up with this line, and this shape is going to connect up with this shape. So if you need to adjust it a little bit, that's fine, or you can line it up straight and just draw the lines to connect. So here we go, going to trace this side. So those meet up there. Now we have an interesting new shape started here. Making sure you're holding the paper still so it's not sliding around under there. Okay, so now we've traced this B side. Now we're gonna flip it downward to where our upside down A's match up, and then we will slide this under here. Again, making sure that these lines connect up and create a new shape. It's really fun to see how the random design comes out in the end, to see what new shapes it creates, what kind of symmetrical design you end up with. Okay, and one more time. So we've traced the upside down A, now we're gonna flip it. Now we're matching up our upside down B, slide it underneath. Now on this last one, we need to make sure that these lines connect and these lines connect to create those final shapes. All right, so now we have a symmetrical design, and it's created some interesting shapes. So I'm going to put this on a time lapse to watch me color this, but notice how we have some different gradients here. So make it more interesting by changing the pressure of your colored pencils and your crayons. This is yellow marker in this area with orange colored pencil. Pressed harder on the orange colored pencil here, lightening up on the pressure as I came towards this yellow. Red and purple here, pressing harder on the red, lightening it up as it fades into orange and then letting it fade into the yellow. Here we have different values of black, so not pressing so hard with the black gives you different values of gray. Here's another example. So this is gray Crayola marker with black crayon. Okay, so be creative with your coloring. Layer your crayons, colored pencils, and markers and see what kind of interesting effects you get. I suggest getting a piece of scratch paper and playing with what the colors are going to look like when you layer them first before you choose specific areas. And also, this is a symmetrical design, which means if I color this shape purple, then I also need to color this shape purple. So whatever you do on one side, you need to mirror that on the other side. Okay? So here we go. All right, so here we have our symmetrical design. I used all three crayons, markers, and colored pencils with some layering and experimenting. Make sure you use a scratch piece of paper if you're unsure about what the layer combination will look like. And let's see, here's another one that I'm working on. Right here, it turned out looking kind of like some sort of chicken or rooster. I'll have to finish this later. Off I have to run to the grocery store. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.